I could be on the very spot where the Speaker sat, for this is the site of the ancient Tannery Parliament. A stannery is a place where tin was worked or mined, and there were 4 stannery towns on Dartmoor: Tavistock, Plympton, Ashburton and Chagford. They had their own laws and courts and parliament. And the site of that ancient Tannery Parliament was here on Crochen Tor in Lidford Parish. It was founded nearly 700 years ago under royal charter. And from 1305 for the next 4 centuries, the representatives, 96 of them, of the 4 stannery towns held meetings presided over by a warden. Their power was immense, for the king received a royal percentage of the industry's profits. Overlooking the medieval pat routes, this was a central spot and ideal for the Parliament. Seated on stone slabs, which acted as benches and tables, the 96 jurats, or standiters as they were called, often meted out really rough justice. Offenders were sent to Lidford and the notorious Tannery jail, and the chances of them getting a not guilty verdict seem pretty remote if we consider the words of the ancient and traditional rhyme. First hang and draw, then hear the cause, was Lidford law. This is Dunnabridge Pound. Its massive dry stone walls, up to 8 feet tall and 3 foot thick, kept out marauding wolves and bears. In the Middle Ages, cattle straying onto the forest of Dartmoor were rounded up and impounded in places like this until their owners could get the money to obtain their release. For me, it's a little masterpiece. Over the centuries, weather and lichen and decay have all combined to create something really beautiful. Granite is inescapable. Man has used it in every conceivable way. And much of the past is frozen in stone. John Bishop's house has fallen down, but the remains are fascinating. And a granite gatepost can take on the dignity of modern sculpture. This couldn't be said of the base, which was made for the naval flagpole at Devonport. No one could shift it from the hillside at Trowsworthy, where it stands today. I'm sitting in what most people believe is the judge's chair, here in the Pound at Dunnabridge. Some people call this the Druid's chair, but there were never any Druids on Dartmoor. This came originally from Crochen Tor and the Tin Miners' Court. At least, that's general opinion. Now, this is a classic example of how more stone or granite can be used to build something. But like everything else on Dartmoor, it's falling apart. Even the dry stone walls, which braid miles and miles of hillsides, are falling down and had to be constantly repaired.
You're aiming to build a stone wall that's going to stay there for a few centuries. So if you don't get your base and your foundations right, your wall won't stay there. It's very often you see when a piece of wall comes out, the base stone or the foundation stones are either tilted or slipped or sunk or something. That's usually the cause of the wall going over. Occasionally you get human help with walls going over, I know. In one case here a couple of years ago, we had a particular stretch of about 10 foot blow over with the wind in a gale. It took a lot longer to put up than it did to come down. There's instances like that that must happen further out on the wall, especially more so with single-faced walls. That's why we've gone for the double one here, because we hope that it'll be there a lot longer than a single. The lads are financed by the Manpower Services Commission. I'm being paid by the Duchy of Cornwall. Well, the farmer wouldn't be able to finance it. There's just not enough money in farming, is there? There's plenty of work. There's no shortage of work. It's just the financing of it. They tell me the farm totals 15.5 miles of walls or something ridiculous. But I don't think we'll ever do all that. Granite is what I've always worked with. There are easier stones to work with. Granite's very irregular in shape. Finding a particular stone for a particular hole isn't so easy as some people might think.
Stop.
I can't say I love stones, because I curse the damn things most of the time. No, I just get great satisfaction out of putting up the stones and putting them up right. There's nothing more pleasing than to see a good, straight, well-kept stone wall.
The 10 Tours expedition is held annually in May, starting at Oakhampton Camp and then spreading out over the north and south of Dartmoor. The expedition starts at 7 o'clock on Saturday morning and it runs through until 5 o'clock on the Sunday afternoon. We get 400 teams of young people, ages from 14 to 19, and they're in teams of 6, and their task is for them to visit 10 tours successively on North and South Dartmoor. They have to spend the night out, and they have to do their last tour of their 10 tours on the Sunday morning. Some of them will do 35 miles, some of them will do 45 miles, and the older ones will do 55 miles.
Are you ready? Ready? Go!
This is not a race. Some people think it is a race, and indeed act as if it's a race. But we are very keen that nobody should think it is in any way a competition between one team and another. The achievement for a team is to have completed the expedition. We have 161 this year, disabled people of every sort who are taking part in a special event. There's one 7-mile course, which is purely along roads for those in wheelchairs. But then we have an 8.5, a 12, and a 15-mile course for those who can make their own way across country, and this visits a number of tours. It sets a challenge which the handicapped people seem to relish in achieving, but it also shows other people, particularly our young soldiers, what it is to be handicapped. And it gives them an insight into the courage and fortitude with which these handicapped young people not only live their daily lives, but also get out in weather, even night days, to carry out an expedition which may last 15 miles.
In these bright spirits, I see all humanity. And life is a challenge. It's a question of overcoming self, often in the most difficult circumstances. So ultimately, it isn't the body that counts, it's the spirit. In the most appalling conditions in the history of the event, Dartmoor and the weather took their toll. And throughout the night and early morning, hundreds of young people found their own way or were helped off the hills. Of the 2,358 that started, 1,711 dropped out. But only 5 were taken to hospital, and the worst injury was a broken wrist. Out of the 393 teams of 6 taking part, 67 finished. In the 10 tours, there are no winners or losers. We don't conquer mountains. We walk on them and climb them. But the hills remain unmoved by our problems and celebrations. Yet crossing high, wild country in less than ideal conditions, we may learn something about ourselves. For many, the actual taking part in an event like this is enough. For others, it will be the beginning of a lifetime's love affair with the hills, rooted in quiet self-confidence. Farming continues as the most important influence on the moor. Dartmoor farming is still ruled by the weather, the terrain, and the mean soil. Many small farms survive by having access to grazing on the commons of the open moor. The central area of the moor is known as the Forest of Dartmoor and is owned by the Duchy of Cornwall. The surrounding in-country of green, cultivated fields gently dovetails with the commons of the upland. Medieval in origin, longhouses were built to take whatever a hill country winter could throw at them. Here, people and animals lived under the same roof. The family at one end, and just across the dividing passage, cows and calves in the shippen. These old, functional farmhouses were built by men with a knowledge of the moor and a love of its stone. They created things of lasting beauty.